Greetings, salutations, talofa, buenos dias. Welcome to a brand new episode of The Doorman. We are those guys. I am Evangelist.
Steven in the building.
And, a little late in the week, but, things happen. Quickly before we begin, since I'm not allowed to tell my story, right?
First of all, don't be telling false narratives.
I'm not allowed to tell my story because Brother Steven here believes, or as you guys have known, I'm long-winded.
I'm sure that they've come to their own opinions in the fact that you tell stories much like Webster's writes the dictionary.
Okay, so I won't tell a story.
No,
but I will tell. I will mention. I'll just mention.
On the clock.
Over the weekend, being this truck driver, I had my first, I would say, trucker's struggling experience.
Trucker downfall.
A trucker downfall. That's what I had. Stranded 51 hours in Vegas.
Holy shit, total.
But you know what? That's not even the main part about it. The main part about it is these two angels, my family members, HeMan, a.k.a. Philemon, a.k.a. Jeremy, a.k.a. Pee-wee, and Rico. Both of them came to my rescue. And I was able to...
How so?
So I was on the side of the 11 North. I was on the 11 North, a mile from College Drive, for about 19 hours in total. Halfway through the ordeal, my cousins come and hang out on the side of the road with me, right?
So I feel like
bringing water,
I feel like you're leaving out detrimental details in order for me to ask.
No, because I'm not going to tell the story, guys. I don't want to tell the story. Brother Steven said I'm long-winded. I don't need to
I just didn't want
that narrative.
I just didn't want the episode to, as I said, be 37 minutes in and you're still telling the story.
No, but you know what? I'm just giving you the highlight of it. The highlight of it is I had two family members who were just gracious enough to bless me in this ordeal. Because, oh, damn. I didn't even realize, I guess, it's to be expected. Being a trucker, you're going to run into situations out there. And, it might be a little rough. You've got a little day cab. And then, not a day cab, but you've got a sleeper. So, it's not too bad because you've got this mobile, mini hotel room, I guess. But
very many if you're
very many. It's like it's only big enough to fit a twin size bed.
It's like sleeping in a bathroom.
in a tub. Here, welcome to the tub. That's your entirety of your room.
Your MTV Cribs edition. 7 seconds. Right.
Yeah. But anyway, hey, awesome time hanging out with the cousins while this ordeal was being remedied. But I definitely wanted to, man, you do not realize, right? You do not realize what you have or who you have until you're in need.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys dropped, at the drop of a hat, these guys were like scrambling, like, hey, tell us, let us know, keep us updated. And they pretty much unpacked their entire apartment because they just moved into this apartment 2 weeks ago. So, not everything was unpacked. So they made sure that once I did get there, I was comfortable. I had, amenities within my it was awesome, man. So shout out, hey, Philemon, Rico, you guys are awesome, man. Love you guys. You guys made my weekend.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So on to the subject matter of the day.
Yes.
We decided to talk to you about the current programming going on. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. We're not gonna bring up anything that anything new. We're just gonna highlight some of the. Steven was telling me about a Netflix cartoon.
Yeah.
That he observed to contribute to this new programming of children.
You need to clarify. I wasn't watching.
You weren't watching the
said
cartoon, but you know.
But it's a clip, going around. Essentially, they're animals. Bright colors, cartoony to appeal to the eyes of children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of them was a female cow, I think, and wanted to go by the name of Fred because that made that particular cow feel comfortable. And the adult cow said, "I'm sorry, I used the wrong pronouns." And it's wild to me that that's even drawn to mouth those words that somebody voices.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. And programming is the fact that they're trying to appeal to children. They're trying to put this knowledge in their heads at a young age. And I guess my main question is why?
Well, we kind of spoke on it last week a little bit, right? We talked about, we're definitely not in agreement about where societal norms should be. Everyone has their own version of the freedoms of American society, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we always speak on the idea that America was created free. It was meant to be free, meaning, everyone has the option to choose as they will.
Mm-hmm.
But along with that freedom, there were certain, kind of guidelines. And initially, the guideline, the familial guideline, it was always promotion of the nuclear family, with the presence of a mother and a father and children.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but the mother and the father in the equation was kind of like the guiding point, right? And then with that, you would see an example of a male, and you would see an example of a female, and you would see the roles that they play contributing to the family, right? And then the offspring would take on the matching gender or the matching gender role, right? And that's how it evolved, or that's how it went from generation to generation. And you could, for the most part, you could expect the same outcome generation to generation.
Right.
Were there the outlier situations where males, had more female tendencies, proclivities? Sure. Were there instances where females had more male tendencies? Sure. Right. Yeah. But for the most part, this programming, because it was absolutely a programming, it was handed down from one generation to the next. Right. Today, with as we said before, Jordan Peterson always brings up the idea that the postmodernists, they which was originally a literary critique, a group that criticized literature. That's basically what these guys were, and their criticisms were boiled down to, words are just words. We give the meanings. We as the reader, you as the bring the meanings to these words. Mm-hmm. So in turn, meanings of like titles in society also are socially constructed. So males, the idea of a male and a traditional female, those are all socially constructed, and then you can manipulate it as you want in this free world, right? That's what the postmodernist movement kind of boiled down to.
So the question is why do you think that they're going so hard at this at such young ages?
Well, we know that they're just trying to introduce this state of confusion, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to, because this is the thing, right? So there was some, and we call it confusion because it was against our own. It came against our own programming,
right?
But they're coming against this norm because they feel that the norm is a state of confusion.
The norm is a construct.
It's a construct, right? Basically. So they're trying to introduce all of these ideas in hopes that, you know, children make up their own.
Well, it's that same adage, right? They're throwing a bunch of shit against the wall and see what's going to stick.
Yeah, exactly.
So for a while, well, I think still now even, certain aspects of breaking the law, right? To transition to another subject before we get labeled anti-trans or whatever the fuck
definitely
you're
not anti-anything.
But so
anti-stupidity for sure.
Yes, the law now almost doesn't apply to certain people if they feel offended, right?
Yeah.
So the new programming is if you're offended, you are allowed to do or say whatever it is that you want to do or say.
Sure.
Breaking the law, driving drunk, speeding, whatever the case may be, the second you feel offended, you can say that, oh, I was in fear of my life, even though there was no fear or no threat to your life. You could say, oh, I what's the word I'm looking for? Identify as whatever.
Right, okay.
And it seems to get you out of whatever current trouble that you're in. And it's almost like we've said it before, and I'm going to probably keep saying it. The accountability, the responsibility, the ownership of mistakes no longer exists because you can walk away from them if you are offended or your feelings are hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. So the point you bring up, it pretty much, those excuses or those that type of reasoning, it leads you into any place you want, right? And then, but the problem is, as a criminal, you shouldn't have the freedom in that, right? Because as soon as you've been labeled a criminal, as soon as you've been charged and convicted of a felony or anything that, you know, in that those limitations, you should be held to the penalty, held to the consequence, right?
Yeah.
So the point that you bring up, right? It's a free pass. Such a free pass that there was a case in the UK of a rapist, a male who raped women, who committed sexual assault against women. He right before he was sentenced, all of a sudden he felt like he was a transgender woman.
Right.
They actually put him in a female prison where he continued to rape.
Right. It's like a shark in a fishbowl.
Right. He continued to rape, and they finally came to their senses, got him out of there, and then now he's in a.
But now that norm for anybody who was a female in that prison, now their norm it's like a disease. It spreads, right?
Sure.
But what's the out for a female?
Well,
in that situation, can't
there
say identify as a man,
right?
Because they're gonna send your ass to
a
big boy jail,
right? But you know what's funny is I'd seen interview after interview, right, of these people, especially that came out during International Women's Day, right? Of people still defending this transgenderism in the face of endangering biological women.
Because if you don't, you're a bigot.
But yeah, in the face of endangering biological women in a prison, in a female prison, they're still saying, "Oh man, we've got to protect the rights of these women too." Right? But you know, discounting the women that were in the prison being raped.
Right. And you bring up a point about Women's Day or whatever month.
International Women's Day.
What is this? Is this Women's Month?
Was it last week? International.
Yeah, but is this like Women's Month or something?
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's so many. It's like fucking Hallmark, right? But anyway, there's a clip going around. I think it might have been on International Women's Day on the Drew Barrymore show. Who watches that anymore?
Hey, I mean,
who watches? You know anybody?
Any fan of E.T.?
Come on, bro.
What was the other one? Firestarter?
She's so far away from E.T. She's not even the same person.
50 First Dates?
Anyway,
all right.
So she has a trans individual on her show as a guest, and she says, you know, the trans individual says, you know, sometimes I don't like myself. And Drew Barrymore, a biological female, gets on her knees and kneels in front of a biological man who identifies as a woman and sits there and proceeds to almost kiss her ass, saying, you know, it's okay to not like yourself. And that's true. It's okay to not like yourself sometimes. But then it's just like you're putting yourself in a position on your knees, which is looked at as a pleading position or a less than position. Right? Submissive.
You're
right.
submitting to something.
So just to appeal to anybody who'll be watching and the crowd that she feels bad for this
ultra virtue signaling.
Right, exactly. And you know, it goes to the same thing as George Lopez. Fuck you, by the way. Goes on The View.
I take it you don't like him.
I fucking can't stand that guy. You know, he coined a phrase a while ago. FTP. Fuck that puto, okay? Fuck him. Anyway, so he's on The View, like religiously on The View, like a consistent guest.
Right.
So a guy who his initial comedy was all about making fun of white people and making fun of white women and, you know, white people that name their kids, you know, Dakota, whatever his jokes were. Funny back then. Now is completely flipping script because he can't continue to make his comedy that made him what he is today.
Right.
Without offending people. Makes a joke, doesn't go over well with the crowd. Maybe they didn't get it, whatever reason, doesn't go over. And then he proceeds to follow that shitty joke with, and by the way, if you're against trans, you're against me. Who the fuck are you?
You did mention that before.
Like, again, like, virtue signaling at its finest. Only so you're not blacklisted in Hollywood. Right?
I mean, just pandering to a specific crowd. He's pandering to a specific, and guys, we get it, right?
And then the sheep clapping in the audience, like, "Oh yeah, you're so fucking." It makes me sick.
Yeah. Again, okay. So we didn't want to veer too far off of this programming, right? So the current programming is towards children, and into allowing them the mental space to take in this transgenderism. Right. They want them to take it in as a norm, to become more accepting of it. Right. That's the goal.
Because right? You know, we all know statistically children are so not accepting.
Right.
They're so close-minded as kids.
Sure. So I guess they're hoping, right? Because right now there's a certain population. It's like less than 10% of this population of the American population. Is transgender?
Well, I'm sure it's rising by the minute.
Sure, right? Because you're programming these children into thinking that that's a possibility.
Right.
Now, as we stated before, children are the most vulnerable, mentally, physically, emotionally. They're just vulnerable. And then when you what's the word? Is it pandering? Is it when you're appealing to the emotion of a confused child,
right? They
will look for a back door any way they can. So, example, if they're not meeting a certain standard in being a boy, right? They're always going to have this out of, oh, you know what? I think, I didn't win that game. I didn't win that game. I wasn't athlete enough to win that game playing with other boys.Maybe I'm a female.
Right.
I don't know. That's
and how is that seed even planted?
Maybe it's a far-fetched example, but
how does that seed get planted in the kid's mind without any sort of influence?
Sure. But again, their argument is that we're programming our children to only accept the black and white of gender. And they want to introduce the gray area in hopes that, more and more children going into the next generation accepts this way of life.
Yeah.
And
I will tell you personally, my little league teams seasonally were shit, bad teams.
mm-hmm.
We used to get our asses kicked all the time, and never once did I leave the field thinking, you know what? Maybe I'm a female because I wasn't on the best team. Maybe I'm a West African tsetse fly because that's what I identify as. I think, and I'm not trying to downplay anybody's feelings or the way they feel or what they think that they are, but I think it's just bullshit
Mm-hmm.
that everybody nowadays has an out, right?
Yeah, and that's all it is.
And whether you use that out is the choice, right? That's the choice you have. You could sit here all day and talk about, how children feel. They don't know how they feel. Like, kids' emotions are raw, right?
Sure.
And they're true, and they're like actually feelings. If their feelings are hurt, they show it. If they're in pain, they show it. When you start planting these seeds of like confusion, it ruins the ability to feel real emotion, I think.
I mean, you know what? Look, I've observed children for 22 years in my career, but I don't have the expert knowledge. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that. I've observed many kids over the past 22 years.
You also have two of your own.
And I have two of my own and two grandbabies, but so I'm not going to say, oh, this is how a child's mind works, or that's how. I do understand the vulnerability. I do understand the confusion, right? But as to answer the question of like what are they hoping to, what are they hoping for in presenting this lifestyle, this alternative truth, I guess.
Yeah.
Is maybe how some of them might describe it. I do know this. When you introduce a concept, right, like let's say the concept of the internet. When you introduce the concept of the internet back in the 90s, right, there was a small population of people, mostly young, who participated in that field of play.
Right.
Right? The very next generation, and I don't know by what number and what, I can't quantify the number of people that began to participate in the next generation, but it was bigger. And then by the time smartphones came out, which was in 2005, everyone had the opportunity to practice it via this phone in their hand, right? So the concept, it catches on with greater number, by greater number, every generation.
Right.
My guess is that they are hoping to do the same with this transgenderism. This is the generation being introduced to it on a mass scale, right?
Right.
So this generation is now being introduced to it in hopes that the next generation, that population that participates in the transgenderism doubles, and then every generation after that till it becomes competitive with what we grew up with as norms.
Right.
So you can assess patterns, right? And that was the pattern that I assessed when an idea was introduced. Every generation after that took on more and more participants of that idea. So I believe that's where we're going with it.
Right. So I had this discussion with my mom on Saturday about, you remember HeMan, obviously.
Right.
Thundercats.
Yep.
Right. HeMan is probably one of the most, looking at it now, like in a Speedo, wearing the chest protector, running around in boots.
Okay.
Looking at it now with this current climate that we're in, I would say HeMan's probably one of the most homo cartoons ever, based on how he looks, right?
Okay.
So
remember,
when I was 2 and 3 years old,
Mhm.
I never saw anything but the master of the universe.
Right.
Right? You don't think that unless somebody in my household was like, "Hey, he's a fag," right? Then you're like, "Oh," then that idea is planted. It was a cartoon that entertained me, and that was that. You
Right.
know? There was the messages at the end about being a decent human being.
So what you're saying is that HeMan in a different climate could have been
HeMan today
could have been interpreted as a
yes. HeMan today
as a homosexual.
HeMan today is a homosexual icon, I think. Today.
Okay.
In 1983, when it was new, 82 to 85, then you had Thundercats, which was the same thing.
So would you have said the same thing about like WWE characters?
Absolutely.
WWF.
The Rock.
All of them.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn Michaels.
Wore pants. Undertaker wore pants.
Yeah.
Bret Hart pants.
So those who wore the Speedo.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that were labeling as.
It was enticing to women back then, right? Because dudes had their ass cheeks out.
Okay.
Well, they try to make it enticing. It's the most fictitious thing you could watch. But now it's just like, and again, no problem if you are that way, but there doesn't need to be cartoons dictating the kids' thoughts. If kids are watching that when the parents aren't home,
Mm-hmm.
or at the babysitters or on the iPad or whatever, that's for lack of a better word, brainwashing them that they're gonna go home and think, oh, the cow changed his name.
Sure.
Why can't I?
Sure.
Then that discussion is
I get it. I get. So I get why we bring it up as far as like the programming, right? How dare they move towards this programming of young children, knowing the vulnerability of the children's minds,
without
with the
parental consent.
With the point that I made, right? With the point that I made, it also makes sense as to why they're introducing it to this younger generation,
Mm-hmm.
so that in the following generation, the concept catches on.
Yeah.
Right. As far as the homosexuality, that I want to say that's been something here for decades,
right.
millennia,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, has it grown? Has the concept caught on to more and more people? I don't know. Are there more homosexuals around nowadays than when the idea was first introduced? I don't know.
I'd like to know the number. You would never know because back in the 70s, 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it wasn't as almost required to come out. Right?
Okay.
So you'll never know the numbers.
Right.
But there's been people who have those feelings probably forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know what it was in the caveman times. They didn't know what it was in the Roman times. They didn't know it was in the...
Actually, Alexander the Great was an avid homosexual, right? He practiced, he had young men. And they're coming to find out that there were parts of the Spartan community, right? Like, so the Spartan Soldier.
But how do you know
training?
That,
well, I mean, these are the stories that are coming out.
But how? All of a sudden?
But these are the stories that are coming out from like written practices, right? Like, I mean, we can Google it, right?
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying
there was a cultural practice. Spartan, because Spartan boys were mentored by Spartan men, right? And then so, as the story goes, that these boys might have had sexual relationships with the men, to the point where when a Spartan warrior would get married, or when he would tie the knot with a female, the female had to appear as a male, so they would cut their hair off. right? So the idea of
But again,
homosexuality has been around for a while.
Yes, for sure, 100% agree.
Right,
but
the point I'm trying to make is that still, in this day and age, they make up only 10% of the population. So, is it
when they're trying to be 90%?
Well, yeah, right. They're trying to become a percentage that would competitive with the norm of heterosexuals. Right. Question is, will it truly catch on, or is this just something that's going to die with adolescence? Right? Are these transgender thoughts something that's just going to die with adolescence?
It could be a trend
where now these young girls who have been talked into what are those things called, mastectomies? They're irreversible procedures that remove their breasts. Right. So now they've gone through these irrevocable procedures.
And why do you think that they don't air as often the videos and the interviews of the people who did this at a young age who are now
regretting
miserable? They're not airing that because it's true. It's present in front of you, but nobody wants to hear that part of it just because it goes against the narrative.
Sure, but I think we got to raise the most important point, right? Why is this all being allowed, right? So it's been labeled the small group with the loudest mouths. Why is this small group with the loudest mouths allowing or being allowed to create public what's the word? Public practices? Public what's the word?
Following?
Phone?
Following.
Public following? No, public what is it? What is another term for practices? Just like a common practice. What is it? What is that? Public
participation.
Something like that. Anyway,
why
is this small group being allowed to dictate public policy? Right? Because it was the same concept that they used to, and I don't want to raise red flags by saying it was Europeans coming to conquer, the Aztecs or the Native Americans or however. But this was the same thing that they used. This was the same tactic. You go, you divide, you conquer. Right? You're allowing this small group to speak their mind in hopes that others, the rest of the world side with pro or con of this small group, right? For or against this small group. So you create this division, you keep us all sidetracked from what is truly happening. What's happening? They're imposing control tactics on us, right? Through the food shortages, through the through the
train derailments,
infectious, those infectious epidemics. All of these disasters, train derailments. They're pushing these control concepts on us.
China.
Yeah. Basically that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to destroy the spirit of the American population.
Well, they're also treating us like children by holding up a brand new toy in this hand and punching you in the side of the head with the other one.
Sure.
Because
it's all a matter of control.
Yeah. Well, it's everywhere, right? Everywhere you look, it's something, right? It's trans. It's the whole community. It's race. It's violence. It's guns. And for as consistent as the shootings were for a while, I mean, not to bring it up and not to wish that it happens, but where are they at? It's all so strategically placed. The fact that certain news stories are just perpetuated, that if you just open your eyes and don't believe everything you hear the first time you hear it, you'll see that there's so many more things going on.
Sure.
Right? There's so many more issues at hand than the trans individual being able to play women's tennis, even though he's 6'6".
Okay.
And built like Hercules, but whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, all we have to understand is this. They're looking to control us. They're looking to be... What do we have here in America? We said it before. We have this air of hope, right? There's this confidence, that has been passed from generation to generation, allowing us to believe that we can do whatever it is we set our minds to. They're trying to rob us of that. They're trying to take that from us, right? So I want to say, look at the little things that are happening, right? Look what popular ideas are out there. What's a popular happening right now? So months ago, a very famous Andrew Tate, right, was locked up. He had been promoting, males all over the world to stand up and do the utmost with the gift of the life you've been given, right? You can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it. You can, hard work will bring you great results, right? So what do they do? They go and lock him up. What message will that send, right? It sends the message to young men coming up that even a multi-millionaire, close to being a billionaire, right? They said he was worth like $390 million. This guy, a multi-millionaire, can be touched, can be silenced, can be caged, right? So all of these little, pop culture events are being allowed to happen in order to control the people. I mean, I think the programming is all leading to exactly that. There is a fight for the control of the American population, because once they can subdue and control the American population, you can absolutely control the world. They've controlled the Australian population. They've controlled the UK population, right? The unclaimed frontier right now is America, right? So we have one of two options at this point. We can lie down, we can hand them the reins, or we can go ahead and take as much as of the freedom in our own hands as we possibly can, and make the most with it. We can deny them of that control. We can decentralize our own movements. We can do things to rely on ourselves. You know what I've come to realize is that if we've said it many times before, man, you've got to tap into your personal circles, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to tap into your personal circles, because if you are family and friend rich, then you truly don't need those monetary tokens that allow them the power over you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're no experts at anything, in all honesty. But we do know that there's a centralized power looking to truly conquer the American population.
Yeah. And
we would be best served if we look to detach ourselves from them as much as possible. Is it going to be easy? Fuck no. That's not an easy feat by no means. No. But would we be best served by detaching ourselves from them? Very much so. That's a concept I hope to introduce to the young. That's a concept I hope catches on in the future, where then the government becomes so small that we don't need them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, make up your own mind, right? Don't take the hook. Don't take the bait. But also, we talk about virtue signaling a little bit today, and it's frustrating at its best, right? It's the most frustrating thing when somebody just is drowning in a conversation or drowning in a debate, and they just reach for a hot topic, right? Colin Kaepernick back in the news.
Back in the news. Must be trying to fund something else.
Dude is probably one of the fakest.
He's the poorest excuse for a human being.
Fakest individuals.
Throwing your
On the
parents.
history of the world.
Throwing the adoptive parents under the bus the way he's been doing in the last.
Adoptive parents.
Crazy.
They didn't have to take him.
Right.
Like, if they were perpetuating, as he said, systemic racism, they would have looked at him and said, no thanks. Right?
Beat it.
Instead, they take him in to a absolutely ridiculous house, give him the best schooling, the best opportunity to play sports, went to Nevada, got drafted, played in the NFL, went to the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden, it's his parents' fault that they perpetuate systemic racism. So I said it earlier about fucking an individual like George Lopez. He can jump in with Kaepernick too. Fuck them both.
Fuck them both.
The most ungrateful human being, I think, ever. He wouldn't not have a platform to stand on that he does if it wasn't for those two people.
Man. I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard to raise other people's children. It is an absolute. But when you have gone through all the motion, all the protocol, giving your love, put in all the effort, and then to watch that same child shit on you, like shit on your efforts, that's got to be the hardest thing.
What an absolute almost waste of time, right?
Yeah.
Because again, they didn't have to take him. His adoptive white mother gave him up at 5 months old, whatever, young, super young.
His adoptive or his biological?
I'm sorry, his biological mother
Okay.
gives him up. His biological father, nowhere in the picture. Now he's a mixed race individual. Why is he focusing on the half of his race that was not present at all? And I'm not saying to completely erase the fact that he's half black, half white. He only acknowledges his black side. When he was given up from his biological mother, who was white, adopted by two white individuals, and again, given the best, silver spoon in your mouth.
Right.
And you only address the black side.
I don't get it.
I'm not saying to ignore it, but how can he look at himself in the mirror?
You know what though? I mean, like, one thing we've come to find out, we've come to see, we've come to experience. Those who look to gain attention, those who look to gain notoriety in the public eye, don't necessarily do the things that are good for them or good for society. It's just a matter of
it's 100%
just a matter
good for
of
them.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man. When I say good for you, like good for you spiritually.
Oh yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that'll set you right spiritually. Like, you know, in the book, in the Bible says, honor your father and mother. If you honor your father and mother, and there's rewards that come with that, right? Consequences. You can call them consequences, but they're very positive consequences that come with honoring your father and mother, right? There are good things that happen to a person who, you know, do as his or her parents tell him to in the best way possible, that look out for their well-being. There's blessings, there's rewards that come with it. So this man, when I say he's not doing things to benefit himself in that way, he's willing to throw these people under the bus.
Right.
And I'm sure that he's got to be experiencing some type of, you know,
spiritual dilemma.
Sure. I mean, and we've seen it. You know, just because people can have access to those monetary resources doesn't necessarily mean that they lead happy lives. You know, we've seen that time and again. You know, from
Hunter Biden,
Cobain, you know, Kurt Cobain to Robin Williams to, you know, the different individuals who have faced that level of success and faced that level of you know, the size of resource reservoirs they've been blessed with, and still unable to cope with life. I'm pretty sure the fact that this guy's back in the public eye, Kaepernick's back in the public eye, looking at, there's something that he needs. There's some
his
some
Nike money
void,
right now.
right?
For sure.
His Nike money probably right now, but there's some void he's probably trying to fill. Who knows? I don't know. I can't claim it. I'm just guessing. Why would you go off and throw your adopted parents under a bus in order for you to? It's just wild. It's disgusting.
Would you like to know my theory on why he did it?
Go ahead.
I think that he did this because there's probably another crazy racial movement coming.
Wow.
And he's trying to get in front of it.
Sure.
To be like, I spoke of this.
Yeah.
He's going to be another legend.
Said,
yeah, I'm going to be another legend.
I warned you.
But the fact of the matter is again, nobody knows where he would be without those two individuals. Nobody.
Probably end up on the block.
Right. Or maybe just an average guy who works at the Apple store. How do we ever know what he would have been? And he'd probably have a different outlook on life.
Sure.
And it's also a crutch, right? It's an excuse. It's somebody else's fault that you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not taking any credit on your own that you just jumped on a reason to be valid when you were benched because you suck.
They figured the game out. They figured his game out, and that's basically what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when he was unable to perform to the standard that he had been able to previously, I mean, come on.
Right, look what he did, right?
What
so he
did
wasn't
do
getting
then,
his way.
at that point,
He
right?
wasn't getting his way on the Niners.
Right.
So he kneels.
Yeah.
And it's a social movement.
Right.
Then, George Floyd happens and he's silent the whole time.
Sure.
Silent. The one who was barking the loudest about equality and police brutality, when the situation came up, silence.
That's wild.
Now he's back in it, saying that his adopted white parents were perpetuating systemic racism. Like again, they didn't have to, and maybe they feel now like we should have left his ass there. You know what I mean? Like fuck it, time machine. Let's go back and be like on his forehead.
No more.
Fuck away from him.
Right. I mean, what do we do at this point? That's our question. Like the question we asked last week. We asked what can we agree on in order to move us forward? We're going to ask the same, somewhat similar question.
Yeah.
What do we do at this point? I mean, what do we do with all of this information? What do we do with all of these, these feelings that are being put out there? All of these people expressing their desires. What do we do with all of that?
Process it.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this.
Run it through the thought process.
Run it through the thought process, but I'm gonna tell you this, right? Because people are so expressive, right? People are super expressive about their distaste for this, their disgust for that, their desire to change societal norms, and those of us who would like to return to what has appeared to work to us.
Right.
I had a discussion. I had a talk with a couple of my cousins because we had been listening to a fight happening in the parking lot below their apartment. There was two women just yelling at each other, right? And we're talking about how expressive they were, and these super expressive people, they're not scared to they're not scared to complain or react, super negatively. There was a fight. There was a verbal fight between two chicks who were angry about a parking space or some shit. So you heard this one of them yelling, and the other one is like, no, bitch, come, blah blah blah, right? And then so we were saying, hey, what does that serve? What do those expressions serve? Who do they serve? Right? And then I came to the thought, it provides some instant gratification, right? It satisfies, right? It satisfies a person who is going through a frustration or feeling angry at the time. It satisfies, right? But what purpose does it actually serve, right? One thing I've began to notice in my own life, or in the lives of close personal friends, like let's say my daughter or people I have even my wife, right? The things that they're expressive about, whether it's positive or negative, it really serves to perpetuate whatever it is that state of mind is. So if I'll notice if good things happen and they're super expressive about it, good things kind of continue to happen. Mm-hmm. But if there are negative things that happen and they're super expressive about it, those negative things kind of perpetuate in their life. So what function does expression what does it perform, or what function does it actually have aside from that instant gratification? It serves to cyclically bring those things right back to your existence or your presence, or you're going to constantly find yourself in the face of the things that you are expressing about. Mm-hmm. Whether you're expressing about your frustrations, more things to be frustrated coming right up. Whenever you're expressing things that are going well or that you're happy about, whatever that is, it's coming right up. Right. So, what can we do to move forward? I would say promote the ideas that's been working, right? Speak well on the things that have worked for us, right? The ideas that the men in our lives, the male mentors that we've encountered as children did us well,
right?
The females that showed us that nurturing spirit, it's done us well. It served us well growing up. And with that, we have, I would say we have like well-balanced mental states. Yeah. There's no thoughts of suicide. There's no thoughts of anxiety, or no thoughts of things that we can't handle in our lives. You know what I mean? Like everything we meet with some type of a path forward, right? So in the face of all of this craziness and the programming that we're currently seeing, we complain, we look at it with disdain and disgust, but I think our move forward, for those of us who have problems with it, I think we should be promoting the things that have given us the tools that we now work with. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'll continue to do. What do you say?
I will do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Little different approach.
Okay, a little different. Okay.
Where the fact that I have, and I know, admittedly, a massive problem with stupidity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cannot stand it. Have no patience for it.
Mm-hmm.
Been trying to work on it, but it's a test, right? It's constant testing from just stupid shit.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that if I continue to dwell on the stupid shit, more stupid shit's gonna happen. So I genuinely try to not let things get to a point where it boils over, where I just lose my shit. So instead, I've decided lately, probably the past couple years, that I communicate, hey, that is irritating me, and it's on the verge of literally setting me off like a fucking rocket. So let's talk about it, and I'll boil on it, and then I'll let it go.
Okay.
But it's still hard.
Oh, believe me, I know. Right?
I can't.
Do I? So again, this little ordeal I experienced over the weekend, right? I had two options. I could have stomped, screamed, cried, the whole nine, or I could have what I did do, what I actually decided to do was I work through it the best way I could. I sought solutions. I did everything I possibly could to keep my mind from going crazy, right? Although there was a lot of stupidity that had gone on, because if you're familiar with getting things done via the phone, dealing with a big a company, you're gonna call one department of the company who's gonna then in turn create a work order for another department of the company, and then you hope that the person that answers the work order is gonna come with exactly what you need, right? Or come in the time that you believe them to be there in. But a lot of times it doesn't happen in that way. So what do? You have these different responses, these different options to respond wildly. What I actually did was I just persevered through those motions. I constantly, when I found the shortcoming happen, or when I found the discrepancy in that telephone conversation, then I would go back and make sure that the message was gotten here, and make sure that message. So I just kept going through the motion of correcting the mistake, right? And eventually, 51 hours later, all was well. But that peace of mind that I just kept harping on, like, my peace is first and foremost.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you. I mean, not funny but it's you reacting the way you did is what we would say probably the best way to react.
Thanks.
But there are other people out there, people who use crutches, excuses, the bitches of the world, would have stomped, like you said, bitched, pissed, and moaned, got upset, found out somehow it was unfair or biased towards them in a way, and use that as an excuse to leave that truck there and fuck the world, right?
Yeah. Oh, the thought crossed my mind many a time.
And my response would have been, can I fix it myself?
You probably would have been able to. With your mechanical background, with your, being a tool guy.
Yeah.
Which I'm on a different note. I'm waiting for you to make the decision to team drive with me. You and I, we're gonna take our show on the road, literally. Hey, comment about that, guys, huh?
I bet
join me in
those 51 hours would have been a lot more entertaining.
No doubt.
If you had
no doubt.
Maybe some comic relief with you.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. We definitely need a bigger sleeper though.
Or you would have been.
We need a bunk bed.
Or you would have been standing there watching whilst I fixed it.
Well, let me tell you something that somewhat remedied the situation. So we come to find out, right? So the load shifted. So all of the weight is sitting on the back of the trailer.
Right.
The axles, the rear axle of the trailer, could have been extended back, and so when the tow truck driver came, he said, "Hey, I'm going to help you extend these axles to the rear, so it'll alleviate some of the height, some of the height pressure, or it'll raise it just enough to where it'll be somewhat safe." So we did extend the axle further back, and it raised it probably half an inch, maybe quarter of an inch. But it was enough for me to drive it to the nearest distribution center without too much damage to the tire. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you and I would have come to that conclusion a lot sooner. And we could have probably driven over there to the distribution center a lot earlier and been like, "Hey, we're leaving this here.
Right.
You guys deal with it.
We're leaving this here and fuck your face. Bye."
Yeah, probably. Definitely.
I would have probably stayed back while you handled the.
On another note, there's so Amazon utilizes this roadside assistance for 18-wheelers called TA services. There was a guy, another angel, Scott. Hey, shout out to Scott. If anyone knows Scott who works for TA, tell that guy he's.
Did you ask to see his phone and subscribe him to the doorman?
No. He was on the phone with me.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but this guy, he's one of the few people who would return calls and say, "Hey, this is what I'm seeing on my end." He was the one who let me know that there was not a work order created for 10 hours. Yeah, he was like, "Yo, this work order was never created. What I'm going to do on my end, explain to me everything that you need, and then I'll be going back and forth with my guy preparing to receive the work order from Amazon. Ready to go." And then so he on his end, he was like, trying to muscle things, make it happen. So once Amazon got off their ass and created the work order, he's like, "Hey, I saw it. I see it. I'm sending the guy now. He should be en route and such and such." I was like, "Oh man, bless your heart, bro."
Hey, so, I see Scott, it 49 hours later.
Right. But yeah, it was a guy, Scott, awesome dude. Animated guy on the phone.
So bottom line is, Amazon stinks, huh?
Yeah, dealing with a big company like that, man, it's shitty.
Yeah.
But
because they don't give a shit, they can just say.
Now I know what happens. I know the reason some of you guys get those notifications on your phone about your package being delayed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, as much as I use Amazon, when it says your order will be delivered by 10 p.m.,
right,
it's not coming that day.
Yeah. So, all you guys in
thanks, Bezos.
If you guys are in Nampa, Idaho, your packages are still in. Well, hopefully they've remedied the situation by now. But as of Monday, your packages were in Vegas. So sorry about that.
Hey, get your iPhone cases somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we pretty much crammed our thought process down your throats about this programming that we find unacceptable.
Right.
You guys are introducing, well, not you guys, but there are people out there introducing
Netflix.
This, this alternative lifestyle to children. Should they be doing that? We say, fuck you, fuck no.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that and fuck George Lopez.
Fuck George Lopez.
And fuck Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick.
And God bless his adoptive parents.
Right.
Those are to you.
You guys did a
more than fantastic job.
He just
giving him what he needed.
He just ended up shitty.
He's just a fuck. On that note.
So we are over.
Gone.